All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Behind the Book, where we go beyond the pages to get to the heart of the story. Now, all this week, we are talking about helping others, raising children to be supportive to the people that are around them. And of course, we're using picture books to be able to do so. Now, this Behind the Book review is going to be based off of The Little Red Hen by Jerry Pinkney, okay? Now, if you have not done so, be sure to check out the Teacher Lady Read Aloud on the story first so you have more context as we go through this review. Now, on this episode, I will be going over the glows, what I think was done well, the grows, what I think could have been done differently, who this book is for, how to utilize it as a resource to have a more robust conversation with your little, and more, all on this Behind the Book review where we go beyond the pages to get to the heart of the story. You ready? Let's grow. Summary in my own words. Now, The Little Red Hen is a classic, constantly retold in different variations. But for this review, I'm going to focus on the book that we read. And I would say that the summary is that the Little Red Hen needed a lot of help and support in order to make this dish. She was baking bread, and everybody refused to help her. She asked multiple people in multiple ways for support, and she didn't get any. But when the bread was finally done, after she did all the work herself, everybody pulled up to the table to enjoy the meal alongside her. And she made it very clear that she was not going for it. So overall, the summary of the book is that if you're not going to support, then you're not going to receive. That was the take-home message, and that pretty much summarizes what this book is about, which brings me to the next point. Take-home message in target age group. The take-home message is definitely one of community or lack thereof. There were so many people around her who were able to help, physically able to help, and yet and still nobody did. I thought it was really interesting that each animal that could have helped had a specific talent that would have been easy for them to do that part of the baking, yet and still they just refused to. And in terms of target age group, I would say 5 years old and up, they'll understand and get this story. It's a fun one. You know, the pictures are definitely older, but still very clear in terms of, oh, that's a dog, or that's a hen, whatever the animal might be. And so I would say 5 years and up, you would be able to hold a conversation. Let's keep growing. Who this book is for. I feel like this is a book that can pretty much be added universally to any library for young children. Young children have to be taught how to give. They have to be taught oftentimes to be of help, to be of service. They have to understand community and why they need to be part of it and what that means. So often children have the perspective of self, and they oftentimes are just automatically selfish. They have a lot of needs and they expect those needs to be provided for. And that is okay. That is normal for children. But I would say if you want to raise a child who is willing to help, you're going to have to be intentional around teaching them how to help and teaching them to be a part of community and a village. And this book is an excellent resource to be able to do so. So if you have a young child that is learning their way and trying to figure out what it means to be part of community, I would highly recommend this book. If you have a child who is struggling to show up or give, I would highly recommend this book. And just overall, again, as children are learning these messages, this would be a good one. Glows, what I think was done well. So again, this is a classic story. It's one that's been retold time and time again. I would say for this book specifically, I feel like the steps that it took to make the bread were super specific, and that was a glow for me. First of all, I didn't even understand that all of these things were part of the bread making process. I tend to pull up at like a Trader Joe's, get what I need, and then walk out. So just the understanding of how much it takes to start at a seed and grow wheat to make bread was very insightful. So that, I guess, would be another glow. But I really appreciated the fact that every issue, there was an animal that could have easily solved that issue. Like the one that's coming to mind right now is the goat, right? She needed to be able to get to the mills to turn it, into powder to be able to bake the bread. And she was asking the goat essentially to carry it for her because it would be easy to put the cart on the goat's back. And so all of the different animals had almost like an automatic role in being able to help. And I thought that that was definitely a glow. And then my last glow would be at the end of the book when she didn't let them have no food. I've heard different variations of the story, and I've heard like a variation where they all get to come to the table and just different ways to kind of close out the book. And I really appreciate the fact that she made the decision to be like, no, you could have helped me and you chose not to, and you chose not to, and you didn't. And for me, that was just a really strong element of this story. Grows. So one of the grows I would say for this story, keeping in mind that it did come out in 2006, is that the word choice is a little dated. Even down to the words, not I said the goat, not I said the pig. We don't tend to talk like that. And I think especially when it comes to children, word choice is extremely important. I understand that that is a huge part of the story, but in terms of areas of growth for this book and just thinking about how children process things, that would be one of them. Even down to surely you will, the little red hen said to the rat. You can use your tail to chop it easily. Not I, said the rat. Surely you will. It's just not typical verbiage for children. And I think that some of the word choice is a bit outdated. So I would say that that's one of the grows, not a huge thing, but something to think about as you're reading this to your child. I would say another grow is there are a lot of processes in the book around baking the bread. And it talks about a mill and scratching and the thread and just all of these different things that most 5 to 10-year-olds don't really understand. Like, you get the context of the story, but I don't actually know what that is. And whenever that happens with children's books, I always love some sort of reference or glossary, something at the bottom of the page that says, this is the part of baking when, or just something in the back to further explain. Because so often children have questions. As an adult, I even have questions, but I can hop on a computer and kind of Google and research it. And so just adding a little bit more information around that process, since it did get so detailed and it is heavily tied into the point of the book, I think would have been helpful. Overall, the story definitely came and pushed out the message and the importance of giving if you want to receive and showing up for those who need it. Discussion points to have with your child. I would definitely get the opinion of my child in terms of like, was the little red hen in the right? Like, what does it mean to be, a selfless person? What does it mean to be a giver? Should she have drawn that line, or should she have gave because she had way more bread than what she needed to feed her children? So even though they didn't help out, should she have gave anyway? I think having conversations like this help you to better understand the mindset of your child and to steer them in the way that you think is best. And so for me, I am a huge giver, but I'm also really big on making sure that it is reciprocated, because I always say, especially in close partnerships or relationships, if I'm giving and nothing is being poured back in, eventually I'll run dry. You cannot give from an empty cup. So this idea that this hen did all of this work by herself and she asked for help and nobody showed up until it was time to eat was really messed up to me. Like, I completely agree with her stance of being like, you're not coming to the table. You didn't help me to get here. And I think having those conversations with your child are important. You can even bring in the conversation of friendship. What do you want and need from your friends? And how are you giving that and showing that? Because one of the most powerful parts of this book is that you should not expect when you have not given, when you have not shown up. Okay. So many people want community, they want friendship, they want village, and they don't do the same. And so there are so many messages to pull from this story. But in terms of having a conversation, gauge where your child's head is at. I would also make the distinction and the point that there is a difference between giving to give, right? So during holiday seasons, we'll do hygiene kits or food pantry giveaways, and there's no expectation of anything back from the community that we're serving. But that is very different from I'm in my community at home and I'm asking my neighbors for support and none of my neighbors are helping me. But then when it's time to reap the benefit of all the work that I've put in, everybody wants to show up. And so I would make it clear to my child that these are two separate things, right? You have times where you give just to give because you have abundance, because you can, because people are in need. And then there are other times where you give because the relationship is there and because you have been supported. And I think that it is important to understand both because both are valuable. Wow. If you have not done so, be sure to check out the read aloud on this story. I love The Little Red Hen just as an overall kind of folk tale or fable or just message, right? A message book. And so if that is true for you and you have a favorite version of this book, please drop it in the comments below. Thank you for learning with me, for growing with me, for being part of this book loving community. On Friday, we have the Teacher Lady Speaks, which is a crash course or professional development and how to raise children who are more willing to show up for the people around them. Again, thank you for being here. And until next time, you remember to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.